And that also is consistent with the verse in the Quran, which is the first prohibition mentioned in the Quran. وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا لِلَّهِ أَنْدَادًا وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Do not set up idols with God once you know. وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. Once you know. So before that, مَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We don't punish people until they are given knowledge. And once they're given knowledge, then they're held accountable, responsible for that knowledge. Prior to that, we don't believe there's accountability, although there is a khilaf about that in Aqidah. And the dominant position in the Muslim world, which the majority of Muslims follow, is the position actually that there is intellectual accountability. In other words, that even if people are never given a message, they're accountable for what in the West is called natural law. In the West, there's a belief that there is a natural law. And this is what the founding fathers of the United States, when they said, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creator. How did they do that? They didn't use recourse to revelation in that text. What they meant was in natural law, it is discernible that people have rights given from their creator. One of them is life. So every human being, in essence, understands that he has been given life and really doesn't have the right to take life from another. So according to Abu Mansur al-Maturidi, according to his people would be held accountable for murder even if they had never been given a message. That's a position, and I personally incline towards that just naturally because I think that it's not the position of Abu Hassan's people. They actually feel that you're not accountable until you're actually given a message of revelation. Because of the nature of the intellect, it's too clouded and it can't work out things. So what then is taqwa? The first level of taqwa is taqwa al-kufr. The second level of taqwa is taqwa al-kaba'ir, that you're actually fearful of major wrong actions with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are the kaba'ir? There's difference of opinion about that. But generally, Imam al-Dhahabi wrote a book and he's got over 70, and most of the ulama say that it's just too much, because people would be held to account for far too much. Some of the ulama say that there are only the 7 that are mentioned in what are called the 7 deadly sins in Islam, which are different from the 7 Christian deadly sins. But the dominant opinion is that they are those sins that you have performed and a specific punishment has been given in the Sharia for them, a specific punishment. In other words, either worldly or otherworldly, where it's very clear that whoever does this, this happens. So there's an uquba associated with it. Because there are certain things where we're not told clearly what would be the effect of that. And those go under the category of sagha'ir, or the lesser sins. Although Ibn Abbas and others were of the opinion that any sin that was continuous enters into the realm of enormity, kabira. Simply because a person, they don't have contrition or remorse for that sin, means that their heart's bereft of real taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So taqwa is جعل النفس في وقاية الشرع وما يحفظها من الأسواء في الدارين. Taqwa is putting the self in the protection of the sanctity of the law, the sharia, and what protects it from evils in both abodes. In other words, in this world and the next. So that's the definition of taqwa. It is placing the self in the protection of the sacred law and in what protects it from the evils of the 2 abodes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in Al-Mudaththir, huwa ahlu taqwa wa ahlu al-maghfirah. He is worthy of being guarded against. In other words, his wrath. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ahlu taqwa. He is worthy of taqwa. It's a right of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we actually have taqwa. And also he's worthy of maghfirah. In other words, if you have taqwa, then what you expect is maghfirah for your shortcomings, because everybody falls short. And so that's from the mercy of Allah. So what we're being told basically is that if you do these things, then you will be forgiven. So that gets back to who saves us? Who saves us? We save ourselves. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ. But we only save ourselves by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when Allah commands us to save ourselves, he's not saying something that is meaningless. He means very much, قُوا أَنفُسُكُمْ. Guard yourselves against a fire. Save yourselves. Guard yourselves and your family. Now, how do you guard your family? Ibn Abbas said, أَن تُعَلِّمُوهُمْ وَتُؤَدِّبُوهُمْ, that you teach them and you give them adab. And the adab of the sharia is taqwa. That is the adab. That's the comportment of the sacred law, is to have taqwa. So one of the definitions of taqwa is a taharruz min al-makhawif wa tashmir fi al-wadha'if. It is to guard oneself against those awesome matters that should put fear in your heart, and also to roll up your sleeves in the work of what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us, the wadha'if. I mean, it's an interesting word because wadhifa now in modern Arabic means employment. So muwaddaf is an employee. But in classical Arabic, in the technical vocabulary of the ulama, the wadha'if were those things that one did in order to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, if you look at people in this world, why are they in the wadha'if, in their employment? In order to raise their standard of living.